I was really beating myself up because I was like, I have this extra time now. Like, why am I not dedicating it to doing other things? I'm the type of person who like doesn't really handle failure well at all. If you're prone to being a perfectionist or a workaholic, you have to tell yourself that like your brain is actually wrong.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Rennie Philovong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day, becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Amanda Ngo, a prior guest that is super talented for her height. Just kidding.
Why did I not see that one coming?
She's actually a rising baker, no pun intended. I describe Amanda as an intellectual individual who has gone through her own mental health struggles, from perfectionism and finding one's self-purpose. Amanda is a creative at heart who has only one goal, and that's to give back to her community, whether that's on a micro or macro level. So let's welcome back to the pod, Amanda.
Wow, thank you. What a warm welcome.
I know. I really thought about what I wanted to talk about or bring up in your opening, and for me, it was about talking a little bit about what we talked about in our first podcast, and I said about maybe 3 times there.
That's okay.
But bringing something new, and I feel like baking was such like a new thing for you, and I think that was like towards the end of the episode. You're like, okay, like I want to get into that. And by the way, Amanda makes amazing cakes, like the dessert that she has, and amazing bagels. So I hope maybe pop-up shop in the future.
Yeah, I have been making a dupe of this breakfast sandwich. I don't know if in LA, have you ever had like egg slut or whatever?
Yeah.
And I've been making that for myself for breakfast and dinner a lot. It's been a big egg month.
But wait, what dish from Egg Slut?
Their big sandwich, the one that they're known for.
Okay.
But I was like, I low-key want to have like an egg slut pop-up, but I can't call it that. I mean, I can because like I'm not monetizing it.
You're right.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think it was interesting that you introduced me as a rising baker, and I also you didn't see me. I got caught off guard at the pun. I was like, oh, wait, hold up.
See, you gotta think about it. It takes a little bit.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm not that clever.
No. I think that was clever, but yeah, I was caught off guard because I actually wouldn't have even seen myself as a baker. But I do think you're right that I've been baking quite a bit in the past couple of months. Like it has become a new hobby of mine.
Yeah. And sensual and unseductively, I said, when can I have your cakes? Well, we don't know. That's a joke. That's about like seriously.
Low key, I was thinking about making it and bringing it today, but I ended up making dinner for my mom. So I was like, my mom or Randy. It was tough, but I chose my mom at the end of the day.
I'm offended, by the way. I'm just kidding. No. Your mom was the right choice.
Yeah.
So Amanda, how has your mental health been?
Honestly, since the last time we talked, probably pretty good. I actually don't even remember exactly where I was the last time we spoke. Did I talk about I feel like at that point I had just gone through like a really tough friendship breakup. I don't know if I don't remember if we ended up talking about it at all.
I don't think that was a topic in the first episode.
But I think I had a pretty rough couple of months afterwards, and I guess I didn't want to talk about that all too much because I think we were talking about perfectionism. But it was a couple of tough months, and I think over these past few months it's been really great. I had since moved into my own apartment. Not my own apartment. I have roommates. I don't have money like that. But I moved out, took some time to like step away from like a friendship that hurt me. And then just got into like hanging out with lots of people and like finding new friends and finding new hobbies. And I've been taking my time at my like current job like pretty well, and just like, taking a step away from the super stressful times of being in the classroom. And I feel like this has been like a year and a half of like healing. And so it's been really nice.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit more, because that's actually something I want to get into, is just your transition. Because in the first episode we talked about, I think you were like maybe 3-4 months like just moved back to Boston.
Yeah.
But now you have a full year and a half. So talk to me about I guess, the feelings that you have had along the journey of transitioning, of being at your own apartment and being back around home?
I've started to really enjoy the city a whole lot more. I think for a long time I had mixed feelings about coming back to Boston, or coming back to Quincy and then Boston. And a lot of it was because like this whole city and all the memories here were like tinged with like, ages like 0 to 18, and that's like not anyone's best years. Or maybe it is. And if it is, good for you, but I hope you have better years after 18. But I have since like come back and like put myself out there and finding friends, and like expanding beyond just my high school friend group, even though my high school friend group was great. So that was good. And moving out was also really nice. I mean, I had been gone like, for college and grad school, and I was still living on my own, post grad school as well. But I think it did feel like a big step back to move back home, even though it was temporary. Because, I feel like sometimes when you go back home, you get into the same rhythm. And I knew what I wanted, and I knew like what I was capable of outside of staying at home. But I think there was like that, it was interesting to deal with how my relationship with my mom changed at that point. Because it's like, if you think about it, a lot of kids kind of, they're 18, 19, 20, whatever, they are staying at home, and then like in their mid to late 20s they might move out. And obviously this is like not to say that this is what everyone has to do, but generally, that's kind of where people are at. But I did the opposite, where I was I left, and like, for the most part, like after undergrad I was like gone. And then to come back in my mid 20s, like I skipped that crucial period of like being at home in my like early 20s. And so it was really weird, because I was like, oh, I'm an adult and I'm independent, and I have like these like passions and these hobbies and these interests, and my own aspirations that like felt a little bit stifled at home. So it was interesting kind of just navigating that with my mom. Because she and I have a great relationship, but during that time it was a little there's a lot of tension there.
When two people are in one place for too long, it can get very like butting heads, especially because I know you talked about how your guys' relationship did have those, like it was that type of relationship at some point. Yeah. And it was that type of relationship when I was like, like 15, 16. So it felt like I was like being like a 15, 16 year old again. And I was like, I'm 25. Why am I feeling this way? But since then, I think, the day that I had moved out, my mom was really sad about it, because she like really likes having me at home. And I was sad about it too, because I was like, this feels like we're going through like a growth period together. And it feels like, I guess it's one of those moments that like felt bad, but like in the end is like a good thing. Right. Like, and I think, that has made me think a lot about how like a lot of things that need to happen, a lot of things that are actually good for you are going to feel kind of bad. And like, you're going to have to like feel that transition out. For sure.
And I think to bring it back to the conversation about transition, I think like my first few months here, with everything that happened, it felt really hard. Like it felt really tough. And I think I was, I don't think I was wearing it on my sleeve, but I think I was going through something a little bit. But it was super necessary. And I think I have, for the past like several months now, beyond that actually, it's been like the light at the end of the tunnel. No, I've been out of the tunnel, is what I'm trying to say. The light at the end of the tunnel was when I was going through it. And then I've been since like just coasting.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. What were those difficulties that you had to overcome, and how did you get over them?
Well, outside of my like the transition out from staying at home, I think a lot of it too was like I was afraid that I was going to get into like a rut. Like because the job I worked, I know I mentioned that in our the last time we spoke, I had left teaching in Baltimore for 3 years. And so I like now have an office job. And there's the difference is like night and day, right? Where I am teaching, for anyone who's ever taught or is currently teaching, like it is it like an arduous job. Like I can't even begin to describe it.
Yeah. Bless you guys. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And I think getting into a position where like I'm really grateful that I have like a fairly lax job, like all things considered compared to the classroom. I was afraid that I was going to get into a point of complacency, I guess, with like how much work I put into the world, whether it is like professional work or like my hobbies or my passions. Like I think I took a lot of pride when I was teaching in how stubborn I could be, like how far I could push myself, right? Because I was like, I'm always going to have a lesson prepared. I'm always going to go above and beyond. Like I am going to like push it to the very limit. Like I spend hours and hours outside of the classroom, which is like super unhealthy. But I do think that like at a certain point when you're teaching or in any high stress situation, like your brain kind of has to come up with reasons to like justify why you are doing so much, right? So in my head, I was kind of like, this sucks and I'm like spending so much time doing it, but like at least like I have like this extreme level of grittiness, right? To actually do that. And it's not until you take a step back and you're out of that environment that you're kind of like, that actually like, I mean, you could tell that it sucked while you were doing it, but like after taking a step back, you're like, wow, like there were so many other things that I was neglecting because I was in survival mode. And so it was interesting because you would think that being outside of that classroom and outside that environment, that you could be like, oh, I'm so grateful for all the free time I have now, or I'm grateful that I can turn my brain off at 5 p.m. or 3 p.m., whatever, 4 p.m. But in reality, there was like a fear that I had transitioning into this new role where I was like, what if like all that tenacity that I had built up in the classroom like disappears, right? Like what if like all the like everything that I went through, what if like it's like you're going to the gym like, you know, for 2 years and you don't skip a day at all. Yeah. And then afterwards you're just like everything that you built up just kind of goes away. And so there was that fear of that complacency and like letting go of something that I really spent a lot of time and worked really hard at building up. And so I think like for the first couple of months, I was really beating myself up because I was like, I have this extra time now. Like, why am I not dedicating it to doing other things? Like, why am I not dedicating it to like, I don't know, like studying for my teaching exams here? Yeah. Because I am planning to get back into the classroom. And it's like, why do I feel like all this ample time, like I'm not using it to do something like productive? Right. Because when I was teaching, everything that you did, you could say was productive, right? Because it was dedicated to your job. And here now, I'm I'm clocking out at 5. I have a podcast in on the train. Like I'm sitting on my couch, like scrolling until like 7, or doing something, or like texting my friends back. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's time to make dinner. It's time to go to sleep. In my head, I was like, that's not productive. But I think in a way, like, I started to realize that me spending the time, like all my free time doing whatever, like whether it is just like scrolling a bit or like getting into like a new hobby like baking or reading or like gaming or like connecting with my friends, it was everything that I wish I had time to do in the past, and now it's like I get to do that. And like I think I've since started getting into that mindset of like, this is like everything is productive when you're taking care of yourself. And so like that, like unlearning that productivity has to be, or productivity is only like the work you put out into the world, has been, I guess, like the theme of my last year here, honestly. And like that was an initial challenge. So I realized what your question was, and I was like, am I answering it? But that's a really long-winded way of answering your question.
No, you definitely did. And you brought up such a good point about productivity and how, because I feel the same way. Like when I was working at EY at a public accounting firm, the first 3 months of the year is our busy season, and we working like 70, 80-hour weeks. And it's like, first of all, there is no time to ever breathe. And the moment that we finish, we're like, okay, we can breathe, but now it's like, are we being productive? Are we not? But you just bring up such a great point about how people who look as productivity as their self-worth and the problems that are faced with that when there's nothing to do, quote unquote, nothing to do. And I was going to stop you to say that again when you said everything is productive when you're taking care of yourself, because that is an amazing, I don't know, it hits different. I guess in slang term, it hits different. But I feel like you had to mentally go through a couple more obstacles to figure out like, hey, like me scrolling on my phone or me talking to friends is still productive. I guess what were the things that, what were the obstacles or things that you had to unlearn there? Yeah, I guess kind of take me through that process of what you learned in that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where this isn't a novel concept, right? That productivity, anything that's, that's taking care of yourself is productivity. I don't think it's necessarily a novel concept, and it's something that a lot of people tell you all the time and you hear all the time. But it's one thing to like hear it and to know and to be like, oh yes, like I believe that. And then it's also another thing to feel it. Because like coming back here, I already knew how burnt out I was. And I was like, I'm going to take this year to like relax and, do what I can to like catch up with my community and catch up with my friends and my family. But it still like, there's like a nagging feeling on the inside because like I'm not a neuroscientist, but like chemically, I think your brain gets confused as to like why you're not dedicating all this time to like working towards something. And it feels like there feels like there's something empty, right? And so even though I could tell myself, oh, like this is good. You are having time to breathe. You are having time to laugh. You're having time to like really enjoy yourself. Like there's something in the back of my mind being like, but it doesn't feel like what it was. What is that? Like, how do you fix that? And I think I think the challenge was getting that feeling to go away, right? By replacing like every single time I did something that felt like rejuvenating, to remind myself that like it's rejuvenating because like I've done something great, right? Even if it was just like finishing like a book that I've been putting off for a while, like reminding myself like that in and of itself was a great use of time, and that feels good. And it feels like, again, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I think there is that part of anyone going through that transition where you have to like sit through that feeling of discomfort and tell yourself that your brain is actually tricking yourself, right? Especially if you're prone to being a perfectionist or a workaholic, you have to tell yourself that like your brain is actually wrong, right? Like your gut instinct, your gut reaction is actually wrong. And like, you're going to thank yourself for this later. Don't get me wrong. I think like at the end of the day, I am still very much a workaholic. Like if you ask anyone in my life, they'll be like, this girl is up, like, editing essays and planning lessons to tutor kids at like 10 PM. But, I'm doing it in like smaller doses, right? And I like am spending a whole lot more time taking care of myself and other times. There's a whole question about whether or not I have ADHD because I like doing weird things at weird times of the day. Yeah. But that's a topic for another session.
I just feel like for a lot of go-getters and entrepreneurs or people that are trying to be that, put so much of their self-worth into like productivity, and that if they don't do something, then they get really harsh on themselves. How can we like, I guess, combat that harshness? I know you said like kind of sit in that discomfort, but did you have any affirmations or quotes or anything like that helped you?
I personally actually am not a huge affirmation person, and I think it's because I have such a strong love for words, and I spend so much of my time thinking about writing, whether that be for my job or like for pleasure, that like sometimes I feel like I can use words to lie to myself. And so affirmations aren't nearly as effective for me as like actually just like spending time with people. And I this is not like a one size fits all type of thing,
right?
Because I think for me, a surefire way to make me realize that what I'm doing is worthwhile is seeing other people enjoy whatever it is that I am a part of. I think the first step you need to do is figure out what makes you happy outside of your own work. Right. So like for me, if it's like finding a community of people or just spending time with my friends, how do you like really, really bring that out? Right. How do you find a reason to gather all your friends to do something? And if you're the type of person who likes affirmations, then I think writing those affirmations in like your journal once a day or multiple times a day, or starting your morning off listening to other people who have really positive talk, that could be something that helps you. But I do think it's very different for lots of people. And I think the other thing is like, if you really take a moment to take stock of like, I think you should also ask yourself, like, what does my work, the work that I am so used to like saying is part of my, self-worth and my value. If you start asking yourself, like, why is it that I feel that way? Like, what does that actually bring me? And then think about something that also brings you a level of self-worth, and then compare those two, right? What is it that like, why are these things valuable to me, right? Because for me, if I go back to thinking about teaching, I think like it brings value to me because it like fulfills like a personal mission of wanting to contribute to the world. And like, that's, I think, the biggest thing, right? But then if you think about things like, for me, like having that pop-up with my friends, right? It also like gives back to the people that you love, right? Like there are a lot of more connections to the things that we do than we think. And I think by trying to find those connections of like establishing why it is that like this is like contributing to your self-worth, and then finding that in other aspects of your life, like that really helps you realize that like you're not wasting your time, right? You're just spending it in a different way. And it's still like scratching that same itch or fulfilling that same thing. And I don't even really want to compare the time that I spent with my friends as work, but I guess it's more like it's worthwhile. Like everything that you do is worthwhile.
Yeah. And I think the shift there that you were talking about is understanding your values and making sure that you feed each of those values. Because I know for people that work is their life, yes, you can have that as a value, but you got to understand there's more than just that one. Right. And I mean, a lot of things that I've had throughout this year, especially with trying to build on highest version, is I'm like, do I need to like when should I say no to friends? And even in the inside, it's like so hard for me. Yeah. Because I don't know if you remember, but in our last conversation, like friends hold the same value as my family because of things that happened for my family at a very young age. Was just arguing and seeing potential of, hey, the family's gonna be broken up. And so I leaned on my friends a lot. And when I leaned on my friends a lot, I was like, okay, this is my family because I feel safe. Right. Now that has transitioned to where I understand, where my family stands, and they are on a higher tier, but friends just have that much just do it so much for me. Yeah. And it's hard for me to be like, oh, I won't go to this social thing. I should to edit. And I'm like, oh, like I guess thinking now is friends a higher value to me than the brand at this point? I mean, I would say yes. But then again, does that have to shift in order for me to be successful? I really don't know the answer to that question right now.
I think at the end of the day, you need to think about also like what rejuvenates you, right? Because I know this is about me, but all of a sudden I feel like I'm the armchair therapist giving you the advice. Like I think, yes, you are going to, if you say no to like a couple of social invitations and you're like, I'm going to sit at home and edit, you're going to get your deadlines met. But then, what if you went to the social events and you felt really enlivened, and then you had another you had another idea of how to do something for the podcast, or you felt rejuvenated and re-energized to do something, or you talked to your friends about what you're working on and they were able to uplift you in some way or help you in some way. So I think there's always like that, like give and take, and but I also do think that and this is me being completely biased, but I think people at the end of the day, like, you're doing this podcast in a way to also like connect with others, right? And it's one thing to have the interviews and have the people that you're talking to, then have like the videos to give to other people, but it always comes off as more genuine when you're able to connect with the people in your life, and then do that on the internet as well. If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a podcaster I listen to. He's like, yeah, I literally put on podcast episodes with friends I haven't seen before. Like, I use that as my catch-up sessions because I literally have not talked to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I doing that now? I don't think it's shady. I think it just gives us a chance, like, hey, like, you know, this is a chance for us to catch up.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a camera there, but we could still be very genuine, authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, like we are right now.
Yeah. And I think, as you had said, like, just jotting down what your priorities are there, and then seeing if that's truly what you want, and like asking yourself with every single decision that you're making, is this what I want, or is this what I think that I want, or is this what my family and my friends want from me, or is this what the world wants from me? Because I think we're in a time now where everybody wants a little bit of something from you, right? Everyone wants your attention. Everyone wants you to think that their advice is the best. There's so much sound, and I think taking yourself away from that is kind of the only way for you to really set your own priorities and to follow the things that you truly deeply want to do.
Yeah, we really have to take time to block all that noise, like you said, and just really sit down. No screens, no nothing. You and yourself with a journal, and be like, what do I want my life to look like? And you don't have to put it in the sense of putting pressure on yourself, but genuinely, like, you should really think about what you want for your life. And I think it's a big question, of course.
Yeah.
And if I were to if I told my 16-year-old self, I was like, what do you want for your life? He'd be like, I don't know like, I don't know. Like, and it's very fair, but at least think of it of, this is what I think I want right now in this moment for my future. And that's totally okay.
I guess I would also say, always saying yes to new experiences and new opportunities. I feel like that's always that always is a good way to kind of get yourself out of a rut, right? Because I think I know we're talking about, because like I feel like this question feels like it can gear towards like career professionalism, your professional trajectory a little bit more, but I think sometimes the things that we start pursuing as like a pastime or a hobby or just like an afternoon activity are things that make us see the world in a new light. Sometimes it's hard to know what you want because you haven't even been exposed to it yet. So I think if like you're in a time or a place where you feel like you're lagging or you're in a rut or something that you're pursuing just isn't quite right, I think trying new things and saying yes to things that come up, or like actively just like putting yourself out, like if you like had something you've always wanted to do and have never done it before, even if it feels like it has nothing to do with your job, your career, your ambitions, I think pursuing that will introduce you to a lot of new conversations and perspectives that could be kind of enlightening, right? Like I think like with baking, for example, for me, if we're going to circle back to that, I had like baking for me, like it's not a career ambition. It's not going to be a career ambition. I will not be I cannot bake professionally like that. But I think like it was an unexpected hobby that I've really started to enjoy. And just because it doesn't have anything to do with what I want to do in my future, I think it showed me a level of capability and competence that I feel like I didn't explicitly think I had before, right? I think there is like, I realized that for me, like I like to figure out why things work, and applying myself that way in the kitchen to work and towards figuring out like why like things are successful and actually trying again after failure, because that is something that I don't know if I mentioned in our first episode, but I hate trying again once I fail. I am very used to getting things right on the first time, or if I don't get things right, I'll like stop like 10 minutes in and I'll be like, oh yeah, I got bored with it. Knowing that I failed. Like when I started embroidery, I set up within like 20 minutes and I was like, oh, it was boring. But no, it was because I failed. And so I'm the type of person who like doesn't really handle failure well at all. And so I think baking, for instance, right, this opportunity that I just happened to take up and do, I was so stubborn and I failed at a lot of like that cake that I make that you really like. I had many failed versions. I actually think you had like the first version that worked out, but there were many failed. There were mistakes made in that process. And it wasn't that like the failure didn't hurt as much, but it was like I spent way too much on these ingredients for me to like let go. Like I was like, because I think with baking, right, even when you fail, you can almost pinpoint why you failed, especially if you go on Reddit and you're like, why the did my cake not work out? And I think that showed me that failure isn't this like amorphous thing that like you can't do anything with, right? There are steps to fix the things that you messed up on. And I think learning to confront failure in your mid-20s sucks, but learning that it is not something that it's not like this mucky thing that you get stuck in. It's the things that you can actually diagnose and fix and like become better at, has been really helpful for me at this time. So I think saying yes to new hobbies, things, experiences, activities will always grant you a new perspective that can help you and your larger life goals afterwards.
Yeah, and that fits into like my motto of 2025, which was like to never wonder and to not think about what ifs. Because I will admit that there are some things that I didn't do in high school or in college that I'd wondered what if, and I never did. And now I'm like thinking about it. And now I'm trying to find ways to do it on my own in a situation that like, you know, I am in life right now. Because obviously, you know, different location, different resources, all that stuff. But confronting failure is, I mean, I just completely agree with everything that you said. And it's funny because I feel like in our mid-20s, and this could be a very hot take or unpopular opinion, confronting failure may be a bit easier in your 20s than it is when you're in high school and college. And I only say that because from my own personal perspective, I felt like every failure felt like the end of the world. And I feel like when we're in high school and college, like it feels like the end of the world because you don't know what life is like outside of that that bubble or institution or whatever it is. And me growing up in a small town, I felt like every failure was everyone's like, you know, mic like binoculars on you. So it felt like it was the end of the world. But in your 20s, everybody's doing their own shit. Not everybody's really caring about what you're doing, and it feels like your failure, and you look around and there's no one really looking. The only one that's stabbing you is like yourself. Right. So it's like there's a chance for you to not do that and to keep trying and trying. I that could be a hot take, but no, I feel like that confronting failure is ultimately do it as early as possible and learn how to deal with it.
Well, I agree with you, because what I was going to say is you're saying that failure for you is confronting failure was hard, like much harder in your teens. For me, it's much harder in my 20s because this is going to make me sound like such an asshole, but I had never failed up until my 20s, because if we're talking about like figuring out what you want to do as like a success or a failed story. Like I think I spent a lot of my 20s feeling very lost. I say this as if I'm not in my 20s. I'm 26 years old, so I'm still in my 20s.
You are in your 20s, yes. We're not close to 30 yet.
Yeah. I'm so scared. No shade. Anyway, I do think that experiencing failure or experience things that really truly challenge you for the first time in your 20s is a lot. Like, and that was a big thing for me teaching, right? Where I'm like, why don't these damn kids listen to me? Like, it stressed me out so much to not have, because I would apply myself so much, right? I'm just like, I pulled out all the tricks that I had pulled back in high school and college. I'm just like, well, you've never failed if you just work yourself to the bone. And like you do, and I did fail. And I did fail doing those things. And I was like, why is it not working? And so I think I agree with you. For anyone who's having kids, you make sure those kids come out feeling like failures, because once you do, you can only go up from there.
Yeah.
Because in your 20s, right, or like after you've had some life experience and you've experienced failure for the first time, failing already feels bad. But so you feel that, but then you also feel like you're kind of like, I don't know what to do with myself because I'm in my 20s and I feel like I should be competent enough to like overcome this. Why can't I? So that there's that leg. And then there's also this like monumental pressure for people in their 20s and 30s to be like making it, right? Because everyone's always like, your 20s and your 30s, that's like your prime time to be like working yourself as much as you can and to like make it to where you want to be when you're 40 and 50. And so there's that even greater pressure on you. And it's just like, if you fail at that too, you're just like, wow, actually failing feels bad and I've ruined my whole life.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, arguably how you feel when you're, in a small town as a teenager. But like this time, it's easier to delude yourself, or at least I feel like it's easier to delude yourself that you've ruined your life if you fail in your 20s and 30s than when you're as a teenager. Because I don't know, I guess when you're a teenager, in my head, I'm just like, oh, if I failed the test or if I failed whatever, like what's the worst that can happen? Like I'd get into an okay college. But I feel like I had that foresight as a kid being like, okay, like that's still fine because you didn't ruin your life.
Yeah.
But I think I have been and still am every day telling myself that if you mess up in your 20s, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Nobody else is paying attention. Everyone else is too stressed about their own lives.
Facts. Everyone's so stressed about like either am I gonna get married by like this summertime or like am I doing well in my career? Everybody in their 20s doesn't give a about you.
No.
And it took me
I can talk about your engagement.
Okay, no, thank you. Appreciate that. There's things that we do give a fuck about. But in terms of like failures, it's like no one's putting their eyes on you and shaming yourself. And that's another thing that I kind of figured out in early this year is how much shame, reflecting on 25 and still now, but how much shame has played such a terrible role in my mental health and how much weight that has just because of I think the reason why I call it shame is because I feel like I'm self-sabotaging myself so much when it comes to mistakes and failures. And I really just have to realize that with whatever that failure is, it's not the end of the world, and that you are able to bounce as long as you're breathing and still alive. You are able to bounce yourself back up. But to each their own. It's just confront your failures. Just don't give your kids fear of failure.
Yeah,
it will mentally ruin them for like a good part of their life.
Yeah, I feel like we could honestly, it's the not to throw Asian people under the bus, but it is the Asian trauma of it all. Like I do think that and again, I'm trying not to generalize as much because people are always like, well, that wasn't my experience.
Yeah.
But as I know there are people who grow up in Asian households and don't have that experience, but I do think it is a big thing in Asian households too, right? To like have this fear of failure. And it feels a little silly because in our heads, I would like to think that by this age, you should have figured it out by now. And like, this is like an age old question. And like, why are we still talking about this? But yeah, I mean, like, sometimes shit isn't great, okay?
Yeah.
And like for the new generation of future Asian parents, like at this age and a little bit beyond, like, I don't know, raise your kids right. I don't know. That's not my, there's no child coming out of me, so I don't need to worry about that. But everyone else, you do your part. And that's how you can contribute to your community.
Fair enough. It's funny because when you said that, when you got everything right the first time, yeah, I felt like I was like that too. I was like, why am I not? Because I was good at school, I was good at athletics, but the moment that I like was not good at something, I'd be like, I don't need to do this,
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, going to productivity and baking, just kind of bring this like full circle, is just whatever new hobby or giving yourself another pastime or something to pass time with. You don't have to be good at it. I know we're used to it. I know we're used to being number one and, being basically being number one and having people tell us that, but we don't have to. We don't have to, and that's totally okay. You know, that's what gives you the life experiences and the things that will make life a little bit more fun, because you're like, I fucked up. Right. And you could laugh about it later.
And what you just said actually just made me thought about this a little bit too, because when we were talking about like people who like work a lot and are really dedicated to that one thing in their life, and then I had mentioned something about like you should ask yourself why it is that this brings you so much self-worth. If the answer is because I've never done anything else and I've never let myself try and fail at other things because I knew that I'm good at this thing and I want to keep doing this thing, if that is the reason why you are putting so much into that one specific, passion or job or whatever, it might be time to expand, right? Because sometimes we end up digging ourselves into this hole because that's the only way we've known how to live, and we haven't given ourselves the opportunity to like expand into different avenues, just to have fun. Like for me, if I just kept working on becoming a better teacher and never giving myself the time to breathe, yes, I could end up saying like, oh, I'm a great teacher now. And like I'm a great teacher because I've always wanted to do this, and then I would never have known that there are other things that could have like filled my cup up in that same way, right, or in a similar way. And so I think that's always something to be worth thinking about, right? Is this thing something that you care about because you care about it, or is it something you care about because you have spent so much time doing it? And that's the only thing that you can say about that.
Yeah. And we have one life to live. There's so much to life besides work, career, getting money. Like there's so much more to it. And it's just put yourself out there to get to experience it. And I feel like it's really a disservice to yourself that you don't do it.
Yeah.
But to each their own, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. We're just here to tell you our perspective. That's it. So there's one more question that I think I want to pick your brain about. It's kind of like just like this whole podcast on the advice scale and how to grow, how to be better, 1% better every day. What's a piece of advice that you wish someone told you sooner?
It would have been, I would not have listened. Trust me, I would not have listened. But I do think I wish I had known that letting go feels a whole lot better than continuously re-immersing yourself into something that you thought was once meaningful. I think I'm thinking about that a lot because I always joke with anyone who I talk to like certain things about, where I'm always just like, I'm always like, oh, my frontal lobe really kicked in my like early, like when I was 25 or like late 24, or like 25, it really kicked in because like there were things that I would rage bait myself into getting mad at something again, or I would like rage bait myself into like feeling like something that was not good for me. I would like get myself back into getting angry because like I was like, oh, I think the venting session helps. But I think that I wished I knew that letting go feels a whole lot better than doing that, because I'm the type of person, or I was the type of person who would spend a lot of time like ruminating over things that have happened in like past relationships, or things that have happened just like negative things as a whole, and kind of like reliving that, and in my head I'm always just like, oh, I could have done this better, or like I would like reimagine like how something else should have happened, and eventually you stop thinking about it, right?
Wait, you do? I'm just kidding.
Eventually you stop thinking about it. But like I'm the type of person who loves like telling a story, and who I think when I moved back here, I was telling everyone everything that happened to me in the past several years. And it's really, sometimes it feels really nice to vent and to stay attached to something that had once hurt you or like made you feel bad. But I think like, honestly, truly, like not paying it any mind opens you up to so many other things. And And so I think like this, I guess, gets into the territory of relationships a little bit more, because I think this like, you know, falls away from what we were talking about with productivity and hustle culture and all that. But yeah, I think letting go of the things that have hurt you, obviously easier said than done, but it feels a whole lot better than like the funny jabs that you feel like you get to make at other people when you are like retelling those things. Like, because I think it just, if you don't feed the flames, right, they end up being, they don't end up being anything anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes you like feeling warm from those flames, but like you gotta let other things grow there, you know?
Yeah, rumination has been something that I'm still trying to work on. I know it was something I worked on in therapy and I thought it was good, but there's still so much that pops into my mind, and I think about when it's like quiet and it's just me, those thoughts about my moments of shame and guilt like still come back up. And it's hard. It really hard. It is hard to let go, and I'm still in that process. I mean, I feel like the only thing that really helped me to let go of things was understanding I'm a different me this time. And can't say like I didn't take accountability for it. I definitely did, to the point where I wanted to end my life. Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, I don't want to make that seem like funny, but in a way, yeah. It brought me to that point. And but I have so many new tools and such a different mindset to deal with that shame, and it's getting a little bit out of control, trying to reel myself back in. But how did you let go of those things? Because like you said, it's easier said than done, but how did you let go?
It got to, well, first of all, I think I'm thinking of a lot of like moments that I had to let go of, but the one that I'm thinking of the most, I feel like I honestly had like run myself to I wouldn't say I would run myself to the ground, but I think I kept like talking about it over and over again. And it, like, I talked about it for a long time, or I told anyone who asked me about it. And it got to a point where like I realized that I stopped feeling anything about it, but I had been so used to like telling this story that I would like go over this account of something that really, really had hurt me, and I would no longer feel anything towards it anymore, which like honestly kind of is a shame, because I think that like I talked about it so much that it became something that felt fictional to me. Like it happened to me, but like if you just keep telling the story over and over and over again, and you don't even spend time thinking about how you're feeling as you were talking about that story, it becomes something like you dissociate from it.
Yeah.
And I thought about how I was like, well, now I kind of got to a point where I'm no longer emotionally attached to it, but also it took me so much longer because I was always talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually like you get to the same place, but then I was like, you know what, this would have been so much easier if I just like stopped engaging with it. Right. I think if I just stopped engaging with it and I just moved on, like I wouldn't have spent months and months and months just like talking about it. And I don't necessarily regret talking about it either, because I think a lot of my friends have like supported me through those moments, and it was really nice to have my community in that way. But then I like more other things have happened like unrelated to that initial event, where I was just like, you know what, how about I try not even really talking about it? Like, I'll tell like my like 2-3 close friends or whatever, and then like I'll shut up about it. And like I found that when I do that, I spend so much more time talking about new things that I enjoy talking about or doing. And it just feels a lot more freeing, right? Because like you think that you're having, you think that you're moving on when you get to joke about these things or whatever, but you're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just like, okay, like let's move on. Let's actually do something like not to use productive, but like let's do something more productive with your time instead of like rehashing an event that like hurt you a while ago. And so I think I don't know if that had answered your question, but I think that was how I came to terms with like letting go, and how I realized that letting go feels so much better.
Yeah, if you keep feeding it, it's gonna stay there
Yeah.
regardless. You kind of have to let it die out, like you said. Talked about the flame.
Yeah.
It just that the only tough part about it is when other people are like, yeah, I think they're good now, and I can joke about it, right? And it's like, I guess you have to stand up to yourself and be like, yo, like, just don't talk about it. And it may seem like, oh, he's not over it yet or whatever, but it's a boundary thing too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I think that's the only tough part about it, is like, you yourself can be the only one to not feed it, but if someone else is, it's really establishing that boundary to make sure like you don't keep feeding to it.
Yeah. No, definitely. And obviously there are going to be hiccups, right? There will be people who like push a little bit too far because they don't know what those boundaries are. And I think that's like a natural part of just like existing alongside people who know things about you. And it sucks, but like, you know, setting those boundaries and being explicit and being hurt that one time, then being explicit is almost always something that you're going to have to do. And like, that's okay, because everyone is going to know, not everybody's going to know where you're at.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming back on and like, literally, I totally forgot you were your own podcast back in college, your radio show back in college. So it's very I don't know if enlightening is the word, but it's really fresh and really happy to see like that kind of personality that I listen to. I know obviously different version of you, but kind of come out in a more mature and someone who has learned a lot from their experiences.
Damn, you thought I was immature in college.
Hey, those were your words, by the way. I will revert back to the video. You said those words yourself.
That is true. That is true. Listen, there is. I would like to think that I'm a collection of you know, those moments still as well. I feel like this podcast is a very mature podcast, but if you ever change up the theme and you want me to bring back my old stories, let me know. I'd love to.
Honestly, I'm really trying to shift it from like, I know you said mature, but like being, I hope it still is in a way genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
And I think it is, but like being able to talk about those informal like things and not always have to be serious. Yeah. It just so happens our conversation went that route.
Yes.
But we can always go on a different path.
Those stories would be the opposite of growth, though. Those stories are things that people should not be doing if they're trying to improve themselves. If they're trying to have a good time, well, that's something else.
It's, either way, that's something that someone can learn from. But either way, I want to say thank you for coming on and, you know, just being so insightful and deep and very conversational about the topics that we're talking about. I know, you know, this podcast was built on mental health and personal development. But like I said, at the end of the day, my whole intention with this is to have a genuine and authentic conversation about what's going on in our lives. And not just me, but, you know, for both of us and how we can resonate with each other. So thank you for coming back. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. This was lovely as always. Maybe I'll be a third time guest sometime in the next few years or so.
You probably will be. All right, Amanda, let's get into the big three questions. It is a new year and I have new big three questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So let's get into them. The first one is, you kind of mentioned this, but what's a quote or saying that gets you through time of struggle?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I wouldn't say that this is something that I always tell myself necessarily, or a quote that I always go by, because it was something that I read about a week ago, but it put into words something that I had always been feeling. So again, this quote is newer to me, but it's something that I've internalized for a long time. And it's actually about cooking, because I'm reading a book right now called Butter by Asako Yuzuki. The premise is interesting. There's like a food journalist and a serial killer and whatever. So it is a fictional book. It's not like a self-help book or anything. Okay. But not the food journalist. She's just a regular journalist. She was saying something about how there is like a lot of joy in like cooking and making something for yourself, because like it's like the satisfaction of knowing that you have made it and you have done it for yourself and you get to enjoy it for yourself, just doing those things for yourself. And of course this was about her cooking a meal, but I think it is why I like cooking, because I do really love cooking. But I think it speaks to this larger sentiment of like why it makes me feel so empowered when I'm doing something independently, even if I'm going through a hard time with it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like you are like reaping the benefits of everything else that you had put out there. And like, even if you're going through a hard time and you're like, you kind of have hit a hurdle, like everything that you have benefited from so far has been the result of your own efforts. And so nothing is for naught, right? There's like, you're not missing out on any of those things, even if temporarily you aren't getting where you're at. It like empowers you to keep on doing what you're doing. And so I think that quote, even though I just read it more recently, I feel like it is something that I felt for a while now too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are an outcome of all the decisions that we made, good or bad.
Yeah.
It's just where our decisions got us to this point.
Yeah.
So beautifully said. What's something we all can be better at?
We can all do a better job at, I think, being empathetic to each other while pushing each other a little bit further. This is kind of on top of mind because I don't know if you've seen anything about this like DoorDash discourse going on the internet. Again, I need to get off Twitter. That shit is so bad because these takes are wild. But essentially the New York Times have put out some story about how food delivery apps is changing the way our relationship with food. And there's, a lot of people are like, I'm just too burnt out to cook at the end of the day. Like, I can't do this. And it turned into something ugly on Twitter where people were just like, I can't cook with things more than like 2 ingredients. I just can't. And by pushing me to do that, like, you're being like, you don't know what my circumstances are. You don't know that I like function differently. And I kind of want to push back on that and say that I think what we can do is we can hold empathy for each other and acknowledge that everyone is going through something we don't know, but we can still push each other to improve and do better. Like there's a level of learned helplessness that is kind of going on around. And not to sound like a boomer, because I think we should be sensitive to our areas of need and our vulnerabilities, but I don't think that means that we should let each other like kind of fall into what those vulnerabilities are. Right? I think that like whenever people say like, oh, I can't, I think we need to start doing a better job of telling each other to try and to help each other try. Yeah,
empathy is, for some reason, I feel like it's such a hard thing for people. I don't know why. I feel like I can empathize so easily to things.
I mean, I actually feel like it's funny because I've always thought of myself as an empathetic person, but I do think I got less empathetic. I don't know when or where or why, but I do think that I was approaching the world in a less empathetic, with a less empathetic perspective. And it was more recently that I was reeling back and I was like, why am I being so harsh on the people around me? And I think maybe part of it could have been attributed to how like I felt like I went through so much in Baltimore and I still kind of pushed through. And in my head, it was a very boomer mindset where I'm like, I feel like I was in the pits of hell and I still did it and I still put food on my table. So why can't you do that? But there's a lot of like pride and hubris there, right? To like, because I would never have wanted anyone in my life to experience what I had gone through. And so I think a lot of us, it's been a tough, like not even a tough few years. Like there have been people who have experienced it way worse than us and who have so much less than us, this is nothing new to them and they still find it in themselves to be empathetic on the day to day. But I do think that what with like the pandemic and like greater political issues existing and like people's like day-to-day experiences getting worse, I think a lot of us in our heads now are kind of just like, we're going through the worst right now. Like, how can you be complaining about this, that, and the other? And I think like that is not an invalid sentiment to hold, but I think that we would all be better together as a community if, instead of having our initial reactions be like, you're incompetent or like, this is silly or this is stupid, to be like, I think we can push ourselves together further. And I think we can be kinder and empathetic, but also firm with each other, so that we can all improve together as a society and not just as individuals.
What's something that you can be kinder to yourself about?
I think I am so bad at being kind to myself out loud, or acknowledging it out loud, or even especially acknowledging it in front of others, that I think I could be kinder to myself in front of others. Because I think sometimes I'll do something and I will feel very satisfied with myself, but I won't let myself feel it for very long. And that, like, those moments of satisfaction feel very private and for me, but I think like it doesn't hurt to make those moments not private. Actually, like, I feel like whenever I do something that is worth celebrating or applauding, and I am doing it while being around others, I'll always downplay it, because like there's that fear of sounding like kind of cocky, and there's also a degree where I'm kind of like, no, I think I actually could be better. But I think like taking your wins as they come, and acknowledging that what you did was actually good, even great maybe, while being surrounded by others, is a really good way to, I guess, boost your own self-esteem. And it's a really good way to be kinder to myself too. I feel like, I don't remember. Well, I feel like whenever I'm making something new, for instance, right, and I'll give it to someone, I'll be like, oh, sorry, it's bad. Like, I don't know.
I swear that's like the first thing you always say.
Yeah, well, yes. Because it's that fear. Like, I will have tried it, right? Like, if I tried it and it tasted like garbage, I do think I would have stopped myself. I'll be like, oh, you guys, I just didn't have time to make it. Oops. But there is that fear, because I'm just like, what if I think it's good and then I give it to someone else and they think it's bad, and they're going to think that I have an inflated ego, right? And there's that anxiety there. But it's funny because sometimes I'll cook for my girlfriend and then she would be like, oh, this is really good. And then my answer is always, oh, I'm glad you like it. And it's never like, oh, thank you, or like, oh, yay, like it worked or whatever. It's always like, oh, I'm glad you like it. Like, it's like it's this fear of acknowledging things that I've done well, and instead putting it on the other people and being like, oh, here, like, because it's like I feel so far removed. I'm trying to like remove myself from my own efforts. So I think I could be kinder to myself by acknowledging my own efforts and like praising my efforts in front of others. I think everyone can do that too, honestly, to be kinder to themselves, because I know this is not just a me issue.
Yes, give yourself your own flowers, and like you said, celebrate your wins, because if you keep negating them or ignoring them, then you're always gonna view yourself at a very low level of self-worth. But in reality, like, there's so many amazing things that you're that you're doing, and even the progression, like we talked about earlier, the progression has been something that you've been really enjoying now. And maybe you a decade ago or a few years ago would have been like have too much humility and was it humility and humbleness? Yes. I think those are the same words, actually. Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
For those part.
Well, thank you again, Amanda, for coming on and sharing your insight. It was beautiful to have you on, and yes, there probably will be another third time. And I can't wait to hear more about your progression and how you are constantly working on yourself, because I feel like you are someone like that. And in my head, as you're talking about your experiences, I was like, we really could have been best friends if we were going to the same high school. All right, guys. If you guys enjoyed any part of this episode, please make sure you clip it, tag me, and tag Amanda's private Instagram. And as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. I love y'all. Bye.
Bye.